Hello!
Hello, everybody! We're back.
So nice to be back here again.
So long. It was December, the last one.
Yes, it's been 2 months-ish. No, it has been 2 months. That's amazing. We had a wonderful year with Andrew. And now we figured that we're gonna do a bit of a different project. So we're gonna do like series with so you guys can follow up still on the artist that we're bringing in. So it's a bit new format, but still the same cozy tea time as we had before, with lots of funny anecdotes and stories to share. And Estefanía has her tea already this way. I can never get used to this.
Wait. I need to turn that. I don't know how to do this.
You need to show them the cup. It's amazing. Cute.
It's... Sorry.
Hello, Kate. Yeah, we made an intro.
We made an intro.
Yes. So, as you guys saw, we have some very special guests today, and we're going to have them for 3 episodes. Estefanía, do you want to say something about them?
About what we're planning and about them, both things. So I think from now on, we're planning to point to Europe. I think it's needed. It's something that we're not talking about. And maybe it's time to open the space just for these things. I think to start with these 2 guest artists, like for me, they're like really sweet for me. I have them really close to my heart, Sarah Petronio and Leela Petronio. And we thought that they were the best start ever for this season and talking about Europe. I think they're a really good, important point for this European history.
Yeah, and I think everybody who has taken a class with Sarah knows how much she has to share and what an amazing person she is. So we got double trouble today, and that's amazing. So let's bring them in.
Oh, they're on Let's Pink.
Oh,
there we go.
Hello, double trouble.
It was great, double trouble.
I know you from somewhere, don't I? You?
What?
I know you from somewhere, don't I? Joke.
Joke.
We start hard.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
So nice to have you guys on this for 3 episodes. We're so looking forward to everything that you guys have to share and the stories you're going to tell. And Mina Estefanía has been like backstage so excited about this talk.
Really, like
yes,
it was a thing that it was like pumping me. This like, well, let's go. So this time we didn't share the topics that we want to talk about. I think the important thing is like the Petronio are here. And so we have like a kind of a guideline of the things that we want to talk about. And I think we will start mentioning just the words tap renaissance. And I think just with these 2 words, these 2 ladies can say a lot of things. They were there. So
tap renaissance.
Yep.
Well,
people.
Already.
You know, it's a very interesting thing, the tap renaissance, and we've been even in the major festivals recently in America, everywhere in Europe. People are starting to talk about that, you know, and naming it that, not like, oh, the tap renaissance. And I think that's fantastic. Can I just read to you 2 or 3 things I wrote about that? Some basics about the tap renaissance, so I don't forget something. In the early 70s, a major movement to bring the art of tap dancing back into the public eye. And once famous senior tap dancers were looked for and brought to the scene, and they all came happily back to the stage, you know? And this is after many years of obscurity, you know? I was a little maybe younger or not quite there. I was still, my life has been all over the place, India, America. But I know with Brenda and all the other senior tap dancers, it was very important. So the early period was the beginning of the tap renaissance. What I noted at the time was in New York, Brenda Buffalino started working with Honey Coles, you see, putting these two major man-woman minds steps. In Los Angeles, Lynn Daly began working with Eddie Brown. And at the same moment, it just so happens that I began working with Jimmy Slide in Paris in around 1973. So that was, it was quite amazing that this was going on like from there to here, We didn't say, oh, look, we're doing this. And it was just happening simultaneously, What else can I tell you? I have lots of information. I don't know if it's interesting. I mean, it's information about, I'll just read you a few more lines, okay? In 1986, that was the breakthrough year for the tap renaissance. This is for the historians of tap. Sally Ann Kriegsman, the National Endowment for the Arts in America, she encouraged and supported Marta Kern, who did the first festival, Colorado Dance Festival. Now, all these first festivals were very important. I mean, they had not happened, and they brought tap dancers, beginning tap dancers, senior tap dancers, people who had never tapped. Oh, it's a festival. And that started an amazing cycle of festivals. We're still doing festivals now, So that was around 1986, 85, 86. So lots of things I can tell you, but maybe ask me questions. One more thing. In 2001, so we can put it all together, Tony Wag from New York, with the support of Hoagie Carmichael, he produced the first New York City Tap Festival. And that was important for everybody. For some reason, New York, Okay. I mean, I written lots.
So when we were talking about things the other day, even with you, Sarah, that the tap renaissance is like an expression, and it's hard to, I mean, it doesn't start at a specific date and end at a specific date. It kind of talks about
many years
and a revival in different ways in different parts of the world.
Right.
And it's Tony, whom I spoke to a few weeks ago for another reason, he had really said that 2001, I mean, New York City, it seemed like that's the place there had to be a festival.
Yeah.
Of all places, there was already Colorado, Portland, Boston, other places has started doing festivals, and it was a necessity. It came out of a real necessity, like this has to happen in New York.
And it also seemed like New York is New York, New York. That's why they said it twice. I mean, it was a place people loved to come, from Europe. If you say, well, we're going to do this in, someplace in France, not everybody wants to come there, so that's what happened. They chose New York, boom, happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, what else?
Yeah.
So I can start.
I mean, it's two different. I mean, the tap renaissance is going to be two different things for both Sarah and myself.
Yes.
Because for Sarah, she was a pioneer in the tap renaissance. She was instrumental in bringing, tap to Europe and making it and develop it here. She'll talk about that later. For myself, it was, I mean, I was a child, a teenager, and so I was a witness, a participant. I was always part of things. And for me, the tap like the early festivals of the tap renaissance, and Colorado, Portland, it was amazing because it was taking classes with Steve Condos, with all the old masters, and it was. I always say this, with a few years later, like I don't think personally I necessarily realized how special it was because, you know, when you're 15 years old, sort of just tagging along. Not to, it doesn't take away from my experience. It just, for me, I don't think it's a bit later that I started realizing
the importance,
the
who
history,
they
the
were, and
importance, the
history. True.
the luck. I mean, it's not luck, but the chance, you know, feeling grateful for having been there, even if it was as a
Wow.
teenager. But for you, Sarah, it's a different story. I mean, she's instrumental in the tap renaissance.
Mm.
But
But you
actually,
know,
if I may say another thing, it's
yes,
you were instrumental. I mean, the tap renaissance is one thing, including a bunch of people, as we mentioned. Then I think, as far as, you know, to bring it a little back to Europe and all that, even before the tap renaissance, the first festivals in the late 80s. I mean, if we go to the early 70s, and when, you know, Sarah met Jimmy and all that, I mean, that's when tap really took root
that was major.
in France and in Europe.
Even in France, you know, because people had known about Jimmy because he came once in a while to Paris, to France, to listen to jazz, and you know, he was totally in the jazz world, you know, and voila, and then we met. That was it.
I think we can dive in how that exactly happened. Like how, I think I know the story. I think I heard it.
Tell me.
Oh, but
Tell me.
how was this? Like how Jimmy was
It
coming
happened.
to France, and how you met him, and
Met him.
how you how started working together, and how you build up. And I think in the moment you don't feel like, oh, I'm doing the tap renaissance, so it feels different. And then from the
Or the
perspective,
movies,
it's like, oh, that was this thing and that point in life. So how you felt those moments when you started with Jimmy?
Oh,
If nobody asks, I'm asking.
my goodness. No, well, how did I meet Peter?
Sarah, you went to a jazz.
Yes.
Well, once you met him, I mean, what
the
Estefania is kind of asking more is like, because okay, once you met Jimmy, and it took a while to connect and for him to show up at the studio, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was not
That's interesting too.
huh?
Yeah,
That's interesting
right.
too.
Yeah, that's
Well, you'll come back to that soon, perhaps.
yeah. Well, phew, wow.
Well, dive into it. You saw him
Well,
dance at
I was, like I said, I was always interested in jazz, and there was a showing of jazz uh, jazz films at a very big theater in Paris, with musicians that I knew from Paris. And I said to my husband, Peter, I said, we got to go, let's go. So we went to hear the jazz musicians play and see the films. And in the middle of the program, this man came out on stage, a dark-skinned man, and I seemed to know him from somewhere. And he brought a little snare drum, you know, the small drum. He brought it in, he put it in the middle of the stage, and he sat down. And I said, oh, I recognized him as being Michael Silva, who was Sammy Davis Jr.'s drummer, who lived in Paris. And we saw him at the clubs sometimes. He was always in the jazz club. And he just sat down there and started just playing the drums, you know? And I was like, wow, that's Michael Silva. And people were listening, full, lots in the audience. And then suddenly, this man, he just flew onto the stage, sliding from one side to the other. It was like, whoa, what was that? And just with like old-fashioned bell-bottom pants, you know, the old-fashioned pants. And he just came on and started tap dancing. I mean, like, I was like blown away. Never seen that, never heard it live. And this, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just said to Peter, I said, I gotta speak. Who's that? I gotta speak to him, you know, because I had just begun to sort of like tap. I was just learning a little bit with some French teacher. I said, oh, tap dancing. I was not that keen on it, because it's what I was learning was 1, 2, 3, 4, it was like, okay. And when I saw this man fly and dance to the drummer, I was blown away, just blown away. I said to Peter, I said, I want to do that, So I said, we got to wait. We waited till the show was over. We went backstage. And I'm sort of a shy person. So I said, where were we? I didn't know his name yet, We knew Michael Silver, but we didn't know who this tap dancer was. And when we went backstage, a whole bunch of them were talking, having drinks. And I spotted him, Jimmy, there. And I said, I've got to speak to him. And I was so shy. I'm not one of those saying, excuse me, I was just standing as, how am I going to, they're busy talking. I have no right to disturb them. So I was standing like quietly, like this person from India, standing in the back waiting. And then all of a sudden, this is what I saw. That's me, and this is Jimmy talking. And all of a sudden, he looks around and he says, yes, to me. I just thought I was going to die, He just looked, he knew I was looking and staring at him, I was so scared. I didn't know what to say because I'm not that kind of person. Hi, I was just like, and he said, yes. And I said, oh, I said, well, I saw you dance and I do a little bit. I would just love to learn, study with you. I didn't even know who he was, this fabulous tap dancer. And he said, okay, well, then he said to me, okay. And he said, and then he started talking. Like I said, excuse me, what's your name? And then Jimmy sighed. I said, can I call you? So he hemmed and hawed. And then he finally wrote a little telephone number on a piece of paper. And he said, okay, call me. I said, oh, thank you. I was like, wow. And I went home. And I waited like a week. I called that number, no answer. I did this many times, no answer. So I said, no answer. And then I said, one more try. And I called and someone picked up the phone and said, hello. Oh, I was like, oh. So he knew it was me. Like this person who's been staring at him. So we had a conversation, a simple conversation. I said, I've just started little tap dancing with someone here. I have never seen or heard anything like that. I would love to study with you. So we made a plan. I had a little studio I used to go to. So I said, look, I go and practice myself. What am I practicing? I didn't know how to tap. I was just practicing. I had my tap shoes and I was just doing my own simple rhythms like someone would do on drums. Like I was just doing this basically. Ti-ta, ti-ta. For me, that was what it was. Even if you play it on a conga. Ti-ta, ti-ta, ta, ti-ta, ti-ti-ti-ta-ta-ta. That was also how they played tablas in India. I mean, that's basic, and voila. And I gave him the number of where the studio, and I used to go there, rent a room like once a week or something. I used to take my jazz music with me because I couldn't do without that. And I would put my little, we've all done that, put our little players on the ground and plug it in with Mishi. And I used to be there for about an hour, 2 hours just doing tita, tita. But I always danced. So even my tita was not tita. It got to be tita, tita. I was enjoying dancing this simple, what I knew to this. And then one day, he never came. And one day I was doing this, tita, tita. Then I tried. I said, it was in my mind. I'm saying, if I can do tita, tita, then I can also do ti, 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 ta, 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 ta. So now I'm thinking basically like what one would do if one was playing drums or something, congas. So I was like, ti, ti, ti. So I'm developing my own. I'm not saying it was tap, but it was rhythm. So I was going yay, whatever I was doing, having a good time. And all of a sudden, I heard somebody was near the door of the studio. It's very quiet in these studios. So I went and said, "Who's there?" And when I opened the door, there he was, leaning against the door, saying, "Hello." I was like, "Oh, it's too loud." I didn't know his name, but he came in. He said, "Oh, this is where you," and we talked. And he said, "Voila." And I said, will you teach me?" And what he said to me was, "Yes, I'll teach. We'll work together, but let's go have a cup of tea." And that was our relationship. Tea for two. What do you want? So we used to go to the coffee shop, and I think that friendship started because he really needed to talk to someone. He'd just come from America, but he didn't have papers. He was passing through Europe, and so for him, just sitting and talking, and he started, and I was a good listener. And I said, "Look, I want to learn." And he started talking to me about how he started and all the old tap dancers. And he was giving me all these names, like I didn't know anything. So I would say, wow, like I'd come back and I would tell my family, I said, he was giving me the whole history of tap dancing, at that time. So that was very special. And I wanted so many times to say, "But show me something." But I didn't do that because obviously he didn't want that. So every time if I said, "Show me something," he'd say, "There was this person," so. And then one day he showed up, like I said, and he came into the room again. And that was it. We started just talking. I was listening. Listening. Then he came over to the house and we had tea, and I didn't push anything. He was not that kind of guy. If I said, "Teach me to tap," he would say, "Go jump in the lake." I mean, he was not, you couldn't talk to him that way. He was just very special. So, voila, we had a friendship developed. And then, how long was it?
6 months.
About 6 months. I have to ask Peter sometimes. Can't remember everything. About 6 months from that, one day he every time I called, he was never there, and he had my number. And I called, then I stopped calling. He never answers. He's not there. I don't know where he is. And one day the phone rang. I picked it up, and there he was. Hello. Wow.
When you started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, then I mean, well, from what you told me, and I can't say I recall because I was a baby, but this teaching was not was more of a life sharing, a trust, until that's what I was explaining, talking to you guys the other day, that at some point you became a producer. Basically, you I remember you saying it was this amazing guy is not dancing. That's what I chose, because at the time he wasn't really performing.
No, he was.
He would come here to do shows and stuff. So
yes.
And that's also, I think it's important as far as placing things in context, and the tap renaissance and all that, is that people like Sarah, these lady pioneers, had to, create the opportunities, create the spaces, create the shows,
coax them to come back to the stage in some way, because
absolutely
they were not interested at certain times.
Jimmy,
and that's how it happened. And he came to the studio, watched me a little bit, and he kept in touch. But about a year passed before one day he just called me and said, "I'm doing this show with a big band in Paris." Right, people?
Yeah.
And what did he say? Come?
The Claude Bowling.
Yeah, the Claude Bowling.
Well, I think he invited you to dance with him.
First he said, "I'm doing this thing," and then we said, "We'll come." And he said, "Bring your shoes." And I was like, "Oh!"
But he wanted you to dance.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh my God!" I was terrified. Big band, and I didn't even know Jimmy. And he said to me, I want you to dance Shiny Stockings. He always wanted me to do Shiny Stockings in the beginning. He loved the tune. So I did Shiny Stockings with the Claude Bowling Orchestra. I hadn't tapped that much, but I just did what I did.
Basically, the sorry to interrupt, Mom, but
no, don't interrupt.
The learning, the apprenticeship, or whatever you want to call
Yes,
it,
I called it an apprenticeship.
Happened on stage more than
in a studio.
You know,
yeah,
on stage and in life. But that's
yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did your friendship in any way affect how you started training? Because you said that you just did the simple rhythms and you weren't really that into tap before you met him, maybe. So how did the friendship affect your studio time?
It was very special. I mean, the friendship was very important to both of us in our own ways. I was in awe of this man, and he knew what I was capable of doing. I didn't know, but we know with some of our students, you see someone and they think, that one's going to be a good one, or whatever. This is saying this many years after. And no, once he had his own problems in life, but once he got over that and knew we were honest people, he was always wary of people, and because maybe people wanted too much of him, I don't know. So I just wanted to study from him, and I would wait as long as he needed to give me something. And that was what happened. And he gave me little pieces, very little pieces. I'm not saying pieces of dance, is little things like, he would never say, well, come, we'll do some shuffles in the studio. I didn't know what a shuffle was. So basically in the beginning, just as I had done, he was doing basically the same thing, except he knew from dancing in America that it was a shuffle, slap, 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 heel, heel. So I'm going back thinking, tiddy, tiddy, da da da. And he's saying, that's good. But if you want to teach it, you have to say shuffle, shuffle, slap, step. So this is the kind of, exercise. This is how he taught, wanted to teach. This is how what he wanted me to feel.
It was also the basic musical bebop jazz rudiments, because I'm gonna skip forward real quick. As far as, because when in the Colorado Dance Festival started doing creative residencies, like the first one they did with Honey and Brenda, and the second year was with Jimmy and Sarah, and I'm mentioning that because this residency where people, 12 dancers chosen to partake.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I was one of them, and so it was Jimmy's teaching and Sarah's teaching is the same. Was basically these basic rudiments: shuffles, slaps, riffs. It wasn't about learning slides and turns and so to skip back to when you were learning with him in the studio, it was more of a jazz musical, rhythmic, bebop, scatting approach. It wasn't, and I think because you were coming from India, coming from another place,
and also coming from
in America,
and coming from a jazz background with my brother and his band, so it was familiar to me.
The connection was there as well.
Yeah. So that was wonderful. Yay! That's how it started. And then we did this first show together. Not the whole show. He did his dance, and then he presented me to the huge audience, huge orchestra. I was so terrified. But I did what I did. And I had my shoes on and I danced with the Claude Bowling Orchestra. I danced. I didn't do any fancy steps, but I danced. And I think, and I have my memory of this first event was as I'm dancing on this huge stage, because I always danced. Huh? I loved to dance. So I wasn't like just learning tap. I loved to dance. And so when I was just dancing with my taps on, and Claude Bolling is playing in the big orchestra, I don't know what I did. I can't say, oh, well, I did that. I don't even know what I did. But I was never afraid of the audience. I did stuff on stage and sang on stage. So I loved audiences. I could communicate with them. Either I communicate with singing or I communicating now with my dancing, Simple, huh? Simple dancing. Yet it was the beginning of tap for me. I did what I could, and but everything made sense, so, and that was important. And when I looked up, Claude Bolling was smiling and playing Shiny Stockings. I said, oh my God, because I was still scared. I know when the music is going to end. I knew all about the music. So, and then I looked back and Jimmy is standing in the wings there, smiling and so proud. And for me, that was like, oh my God, Well, see, my hair is standing. It was very special because it was not, it was like he watched, he listened, he loved it, he smiled. When I saw his smile, I said, oh my goodness, I must be doing the right thing, Even though my thing was very simple, I didn't know steps and stuff. But I had taps. So I'm trying to say that even not knowing steps, everybody teaches their students steps. That's how they teach them. That's one way of teaching, which is good. But since I didn't know steps, I was really playing with sounds, and that's okay. And then I started learning. Then I knew what the steps were. I started learning. So when I started teaching, I would teach with the sound and the steps, because now I know that's a shuffle. And when I started dancing with Jimmy, he would say, this is a brush, this is a cramp roll. Oh, okay. Yeah. What?
Bad connection.
Oh.
So,
It's like
what happened?
not
You're
there.
back. It was a bad
It's okay?
connection. Yeah.
Something went like that. Can you hear me now?
It's slightly delayed, but yes.
Okay. So then,
Ooh.
I don't know if you hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So then I decided. I told Jimmy, I think we should do a show, because we had all kinds of musicians. We knew all kinds of lovely jazz musicians. So did he. So did I. So I decided to do the show and I said, let's call it It's About Time, because it's about time we did a show, and it's also all about time, And so it was very simple. It was big band or whatever jazz band we chose. And it was just Jimmy dancing, I'm dancing. Sometimes we come together, music plays. It was very simply, but very beautiful jazz. So that's how it started. And then we took that show, It's About Time, to many places, and that was nice, because then it became, then you're looking out at the audiences, it's not like a jazz club. This is a big show,
Well,
So yes.
One sec. Also, just because you're talking about this, it's not just big places. You guys took the show to some major festivals in France
Yes.
that had never yet, programmed a jazz and tap show.
That's
So like Jean Les Pins, a bunch of places, and dance festivals as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of special, especially at the time,
Right.
because there are very few shows, including tap, that were either in the jazz festival scene or or dance
Yes,
festival.
because even in Europe, even to the other places we went and performed, and Paris, it was never like that. I mean, it was like quite constructed. And here we come, the two of us, and boom, he dances, I dance, we dance together, and it was wonderful. It was totally wonderful. And I think that's what I spread when I afterwards, because that's the way to be, And also people were beginning to like love this, They were so used, especially in France, they were so used to the clicky clacky clicky clacky tick, And then here we come and go boom, boom, and Jimmy slides and I'm turning, and it was special at the time.
We
And I
have
think
a
it still
question
is.
Yeah, because
from
at the time there
Kate.
were, I mean, there's been, there's tap has been around in schools, and the time there was, dance schools, tap dancing was present, but in a very more musical comedy,
Yes, movies, the
fashion,
French
quote
love
unquote,
movies, so all the musical comedies, which were fantastic. But
But yeah,
I went the other way. I went like I don't want. I decided I didn't want to memorize. I didn't want to memorize steps. If you're dancing, in my mind, I said, you know what? I want to be free. I want to dance. I love the music. This is the music I want to dance to. I want to be free. If you're dancing with a second person or a partner, then of course there's construction. Because, okay, Leela and I dancing, we can't each do our own thing. So I do my thing, she does her thing, and then we come together and we do the same thing. And that is special also, because it's also my way, it was my way of bringing tap to audiences who had never seen this kind of jazz tap. They were so used to hats and canes and stuff like that. And I think it was special. And it still is. And you will continue doing it, I hope. Oh,
So,
that's-
yes.
Kurt is there. I don't know if he's still there, but hey, Kurt. And,
Kurt is in
and
there.
Meg.
Yes.
I'm remembering people to ask questions. Like we know Kate
Yes, please ask questions if
is
you have any
doing thing,
questions.
but
So that it's
feel
a
free to ask.
Oh, there are people there?
Yeah, there are people there. They're shy.
Oh, I just
They're shy.
I think everybody's just swallowing all the information.
This guy?
I have another question. Like I can go for more questions.
Yes, yes, please.
So
It's good. Questions are lovely.
you're mentioning you moved like the jazz step from the small jazz scene in Paris to the concert stage. So
Yes.
what were you adapting to move to the other, and how was the process? Like to
It's
see,
an interesting question.
or maybe there was not.
No, it's a good question, because the jazz clubs are tiny.
Mm-hmm.
So you're lucky if you have 1 foot square or 2 foot square, and not every jazz, like people say, not every jazz club had dancers. They didn't want people. Jazz musicians were not that keen. You had to find the right. I had to look for the right people, the right jazz people who loved the dance.
Plus,
And
sorry,
because
you
some
were dancing with some big time jazz musicians as well.
big
I think
time
that
jazz musicians,
also, to bring tap into the club, also,
absolutely.
helps.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. It's
But can I
interesting.
say about because I remember the shows. It's About Time.
Oh,
I
good.
remember the other shows you guys did, and what I think Sarah managed to do, is to bring the intimacy of the club to a big stage, and that's kind of magical
That-
because it's not just about, and also because there was no how do you say, scenography. I mean, it's basically the trio, the dancers. I mean, you guys had some things going on, and It's About Time. There was one version with the dressing
Where we
rooms
come
on each
together.
side, one version with an apartment set up on stage. But
Yes.
regardless, as far as more deep conceptual, it's like, how did you manage, I guess, to bring the intimacy that you have in a club onto a big stage, and for the audience to feel that? And
Yes.
personally, I think it's just because of the magic of jazz, of jazz tap, of improvisation, and of these people specifically,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sarah and Jimmy and Michael and the musicians that you had.
Yes. Yes. I
Mm.
can. I like like I've told you before. I don't like talking too much about myself, but that was I. It if I stepped out on a stage, it was not to show off who I am. It was to communicate with somebody. And I found with the music behind me and supporting me, which I loved the music, and I could talk to my musicians and tell them something, but I was for the audience completely. I could look at somebody. In fact, one of my first poems was like number so and so on the 50th row. And I think it's just, going out there, and I'm not dancing for myself. I am not dancing for myself. I enjoy it, but I'm dancing for somebody. And I think that's important, because then you're offering something. So, and I found for myself, learning routines, all the teachers wanted to teach. So you're doing this routine, and I, okay, I can do that too, but I wanted to communicate what I felt when this music touched my soul, and I could express with it. And I was lucky. I found lovely musicians, and I know some of you, all of you, have the same feeling. When you can get out there and speak your dance and offer it to somebody. I always tell many of the students, I said, don't dance for yourself. Dance for myself. I'm dancing for you.
How do you think this journey with Jimmy influenced the rest of Europe? Because France was, or still is, kind of a hotspot for the jazz. So how do you think your relationship with him
Oh, yes.
influenced the rest of the jazz scene in Europe?
I don't think it influenced the rest of the jazz scene. I think that in certain areas where the audiences and the musicians were not stuck in one pattern, and they were open to different things. And once they saw what we were talking about or what we did, it's a different story. They understood. So it was, you dance and you give, and the people accept. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. You have to really do it. Y'all could do it. Y'all are the kind of people who would do it beautifully. The way you're talking to me, the way my Leela looks at me, the way you're looking at me. That's the way you go and dance and say, "This is for you." And this is what I did. Like, I would choose like a beautiful jazz tune that had a special title, like what?
Like Ruby, my dear, or
Ruby, my
Janine.
dear, I danced when my mom died because her name was Ruby. Or, yeah. And what did you say? That was the what did you say, Peter? Yeah. And I used to love dancing to "There Will Never Be Another You." So,
Every time Jimmy chose
yeah,
music, it was always
even Jimmy, every time he chose a number, it was not, okay, I'm going to do ragtag tag. It was always something that meant something. I mean, I have never really danced to Tea for Two, because I've never been sitting having tea with anyone. I mean, so I choose a number that means something also.
Oh, on the
And there are
moment as well.
lots of
Because I know
beautiful
you've had
jazz
a lot of
tunes.
tea. So you've had a lot of teas
What
for
fun?
twos. You've had a lot of
Oh,
teas for twos, but yeah, it's not a song.
that's true.
I appreciate
We
it.
have
That's
a
true.
question from Kate actually. She's asking
Oh.
how long you have been performing in France, and did you and Slide travel as a duo together to other countries as well?
It's a good question. We what, Peter?
Switzerland, no?
Well,
But
we danced first it was France based in the beginning. We went to nearby places. Switzerland we did. Where else we did? Many
Italy,
places.
but
And the south of France also. But it was not. I can't say, well, that's what we did, because Jimmy was gone. He was always not there or not there. When he was not there, I started doing it myself, you see, because I loved it so. And then I was doing my own thing.
Yeah. If I could just say,
Sorry.
so we don't, just to answer Kat's
Yes.
question, that, I mean, as far as traveling to other countries as a duet, I mean, they were
Yes.
never really a duet, already, it's not really that, but you guys performed together in America.
Yes.
They didn't travel to America together to perform, but that happened there as well. And that was
yes.
because even if we're talking about Europe, let me just finish. Even if we're talking about Europe, there was also a moment where it was important for Sarah to also be the other side of the Atlantic and, recognized, and that that the partnership between Sarah and Jimmy, which happened mostly here at the beginning, that had to make its way and be recognized in America as well at some point. So,
which happened with Tony and other family.
What do you mean by also Germany, Kurt? That they went to Germany?
Yes. Where's Kurt? Speak up.
Well, he wrote on the side. Did you guys go to Germany together? Not with Jimmy, I don't think, no?
I don't remember. No, I don't think. I don't know. I don't remember Germany.
When did you go to the US?
When did you go to the US? Oh my goodness.
You mean to perform? Well, the first festivals, no?
Colorado. We first, yeah.
86.
And that's when, Jimmy and I in Colorado, that started the ball rolling for the tap, the jazz tap. Steve Condos was there. And
sorry. I'm laughing because Kurt wants to speak up, but Kurt, you cannot speak up. We can't let you on to this speaking up.
It's like,
a bit more in the text if you want.
He wants to speak?
He wants to speak up.
Speak
so
up.
1986. Yeah, I would say that. That was the first Colorado festival.
And that was the first trip?
I believe so.
I'm very bad at dates.
1986.
1986.
Yeah, because that was the yeah. That's the year I met Josh.
Yeah. No, because then I'd have to look at the papers and you don't want to bother with that. So
yeah.
Whatever I can remember off the top.
And so Kurt, since you're watching and writing, you could maybe remind us what year the residency with Sarah and Jimmy that you also were part of.
And we chose you.
91, or do you remember that? Because I can't.
The following year.
The following year.
87.
Following from what?
The first year was 86.
86.
That was Brenda and Honey.
Brenda and Honey.
And the second year was Jimmy and Sarah. 1 year later.
87.
Okay, can I say I see what Kurt wants to know. Basically, Sarah and myself, we were in France until 1989. So when she went, or when we went to the first festivals, it was from France. We moved to Chicago in 1989 for a few years, and while we were in Chicago, we
went to
went to all these different festivals, and this was still happening. And then Sarah moved back to Europe, to France, in 1995.
Yes.
and I followed not so long after. Anyway, just to
Why?
with the chronology.
And while we were in Chicago, I produced the first big jazz tap festival in Chicago. That was fantastic. It was fantastic.
I think
And you
Lila,
could
you post.
Chicago on Tap, that was called. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
You,
so
you
yeah,
Lila posted the. Oh, I forgot the name. Like the list of the artists. I think
yes,
you
I
posted.
put that recently. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
what?
It was
That was amazing.
I think I posted the run through of the show. I had found the
Chicago on
program
Tap?
in my archives. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, just to
Wow.
come back, and it makes me think of this tap renaissance term.
Yeah.
I guess because now that I think of the Chicago on Tap show, which was 1994, so we're in the 90s. I mean, this I guess is still kind of the tap renaissance because all the masters were still, not all, but like there was a lot of the masters that were still alive
Alive.
and active and dancing, and
Yes, yes.
so
yes.
that would be, yeah, I guess you could still.
Who was in Chicago on Tap?
Chicago on Tap was, well, you and Jimmy were. We had Savion,
Savion. He was
Chuck Green.
young Savion, yeah.
Yeah, young. I'm just randomly whatever.
Yes, yes, good, good.
Chuck Green,
Chuck.
Lon Chaney was there.
Yeah.
Van Porter.
Yes, I'm thinking
Mark
of the
Mendonça.
Mark Mendonça I chose.
Ted, Asia, Gray, myself.
Yeah, y'all were the youngies.
Karen Calloway Williams.
Yes, that's true.
And Brenda, no? Yes, Brenda was there.
Big, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. It was great. It was great. Because it was strange territory, Chicago. There were a lot of people there who were also trying to do that, and we showed up with this Chicago on Tap and just blew everybody away. Ta-da! It was great. It was a great experience. Yes, and then we lived in Chicago for many years, 5 years. And for me, that was special, the jazz scene in Chicago. Because even there, nobody had ever walked into a jazz club and tap danced, We always think, oh, in America. But I knew some of the musicians. And I always went first to a musician. I didn't come there and say, I would like to tap. I mean, who are you? No. So it was always with a musician or through a musician that I met, and I, told him what I did, and he would say, wow, come. So that's how I started that. And it was fantastic. And when I finally managed to do the Chicago on Tap, it was huge. It was huge. Boom, big scenario. And it was not show business. It was jazz tap, young Savion and everybody,
It was nice.
It was nice.
What was special about that show too is that we had, you choreographed a piece for a group of us, which was, I want to say uncommon at the time for this kind of festival show, perhaps. Yeah. Well, especially with it wasn't like, oh, there's a group number. It was like
the special jazz.
Asia, Ted, like doing a group number. It's like, whoa, nice.
I have all those photos for you.
Yeah. Kurt is asking who were the musicians in Chicago on Tap. I remember Marlene Rosenberg, a bass player.
Bass on bass. Willie Pickens on piano.
Willie Pickens on piano. Drums.
Who was on drums?
I can't remember.
Robert Shy in the beginning. First, Robert Shy.
And there was a trombone player.
Who was that? I can't remember.
There was a trombone player in Chicago on Tap?
Yeah.
Maybe I just asked, was it a lady?
No guy.
Oh dear.
We didn't know.
You should be interviewing Peter.
No, but we didn't know all the musicians then. So we just met and invited and, and listened and said, wow, that one's good. Let's have him, So that was the way it went.
Yeah.
What else?
Any other
magic times.
So much to say.
I think the both points, Sarah was the producer, no, of that show.
Yes.
and Lila was part. I think the both like perspectives on the same thing and talking about these two things. I think it's really sweet.
Well,
Especially-
yeah. You were the producer, but I mean, in the context of Chicago, that's what made it also a huge festival. Is that there was two major structures co-producing the event as well. Columbia College, which has
Yes.
a big dance center, and the Old Town School of Folk Music, which is
Yeah.
interesting because it's placing.
Well, it was
placing tap in a
placing tap in
folkloric.
places that never were,
But
and
and what's funny, what's interesting. So Sarah was producer and artistic director, and at the time I was dancing in it, but I had just graduated from college, actually, in arts management and production. So I had worked on the festival as a sort of intern as well, like a little bit in the office.
not paid.
Of course not. Exploited. No, but it's just interesting. I don't
A
know.
learning
That's what we're
process.
talking about, Estefanía, about productions and
Yeah.
the levels of things.
How do you see a production, Estefania, when you do one, when you produce? What do you, like, suppose you're producing a jazz tap thing. What comes first in your mind? Well,
It's not jazz what I'm doing.
it's
Electronic music. What comes first?
when you said, okay, we're going to do the show. Okay, so what do you think of first? The dance, the music, the place? I'm just curious.
For example, this last time, because I had a specific place to do the thing, I fit everything in this place. It's Almeria Teatre. It's in Barcelona. It's
Right.
small. It's a small place. So all the things I fitted visually, thinking on that place. But I think the first thing that was in my mind to build all this thing was the story that I wanted to tell. So what I wanted to communicate with this show, it came first.
And how did you communicate it?
Dancing. Like, it was all about dancing and the movements and the quality of the sounds and the quality of the movement to get the specific emotions that I wanted to share. Like, somebody told me once we were rehearsing, because we had a background with some text that we wrote, that they were not needed. Like, just the dancing was more than enough.
Was enough. Yeah.
So that was like a plus that we had, but I'm communicating through the visual thing about movement, sounds, and staging, how you move and how you touch and how you relate to the other dancer. That's how it went. But I don't have like a specific point, like I'm starting with the music or I'm starting with this. Like, it came differently every time.
Absolutely. And you, Leela?
Wait for a stream. No, I'm reading the comments on the side. Oh, well, me, it depends, but I usually, it's either it comes from a desire of certain people at a certain moment that I really want to work with. So, and I'm saying that because it could be a musician or even in dance, it's not necessarily just tap. So or hip hop or Afro contemporary or whatever. So the desire can come from that, the desire and the idea of the show.
Of
And
course.
it's not. I mean, more recently, I've been more into. I don't want to say conceptual shows because I don't consider really being a conceptual person, but passing messages through, really saying something through shows. And that's where the starting point is. But a lot of times I'm saying that, but then a lot of times it's also the actual dance. I mean, for me it's different too because we're working a lot with trying to fusion things between body percussion and different dance forms, and so a lot of times the show comes from the actual material that you're trying to put out, and how does it find its way into not a story, but a propos,
A theme, yeah.
a theme.
And Estefania, have you done a show basically from a theme or a story or a.
Love Sarah's interviewing us.
It's like, oh,
It's interesting. I
Turning
want,
the tables around.
yeah.
no, I want to know.
I'm joking.
Maybe I can add my little 1 penny to that.
The last one, the story was about how you deal. Like the title of the show was "Summary of Memories and Scars."
Yeah.
So I think it says it all. It's a little story on how you receive a relationship, like not romantic, any kind of relationship, or with your past and with your present.
Yeah.
How you deal with it, how you struggle or have fun with it, and how you move forward with it.
Wow.
That was the theme.
The team, yeah.
What I've been also, I guess, in the past few years, like, because at certain moments not I was told, but I heard or whatever, came to understand that a lot of people didn't consider that in rhythm tap and percussive dance forms that we're not able to go
Convey.
past just the performance aspect. And I'm saying this like, and people saying it with a little bit of a, an intonation under there, like it's not really choreographic or this or that.
Yeah.
So
We've all been through that.
quest and the not the quest, but the path has been more than even concept. It's also how to translate emotions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And poetry and different things. And it's for a long time I found it hard. When I say for a long time, I mean like 15, 20, when I was much younger, because we're coming from a improvisational, like whatever, we're coming from where
Yeah.
we're coming from. So it's like a real kind of path to find, and to a lot of experimenting, I would say, to find the way, for
So,
me at least.
so if we're all together here talking now, and we had to make a statement, how would how would we all, with our own, plan a show?
Oh dear.
So Iselin is
It's not.
also leading some new company in Norway. Like the she's starting, but talk about it. Talk.
It's
Something.
we can learn from that, and
Yeah,
and
well, let's see, because I don't have like completely free hands yet, because I
right.
don't have a theater like Estefanía. So often when we get to perform, it's with some restrictions. But for me, it's basically like when I put together a piece or a smaller show, it has to be some inspiration of maybe some rhythm phrases that I get inspired by, or
Of
it can
course,
be the
of
music
course.
itself that is inspiring. But I always have this intention of showing the dance of tap dance together with the music. So I'm very that the movement and the visual aspect of it is supposed to tell something together with the rhythms.
Of course. Yeah. Interesting. I went through a whole, I went through a period, along other things. See, I write, I like to write, and I like words, and I like words, and reading and words. So words been are interesting for me. Like, so sometimes in my mind, like when I said, it's about time, it's about time. Just threw that out because, and then all of a sudden, as you think about that, it just came out like, oh, it's about time. It's about time we did the show. So some people thought it was that. It's about time, So it just fascinated me, because I didn't even think of all that when I said it's about time, when I wanted to do that, because it was about time. It was the jazz and the time. And then the more we perform the show and people ask questions, like, oh, it's about time. And I realized at that point that words do mean a lot in a certain ways. That's songs too,
But
And
Mom, your first show, not first, but the show you did, at one point you had the Paris Tap Dance Company. This is really early on. It's like the early 80s or something.
yeah.
And that show that you put together with like about 12 dancers,
More, yeah.
more or less. It was also based, which I'm just thinking now, on words, because the show was called tapisserie.
That's right.
Tapisserie means weaving.
Mm.
Right? A weaving.
Tapestry, yeah.
Yeah, the tapestry. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like ACS company. And well, whatever. And it was the whole show was basically around those X amount of letters that changed around and created words and pretexts for
Yeah,
different
yeah.
things. So you were definitely always into words. Sorry, just confirming.
No, it's interesting because this can open something in someone's mind,
So
and songs and music too, songs and music. This is like, I want to do this show. I don't know what to call it yet because it doesn't have a theme. And boom, you have the right music, call it that. Because that's what it is. And sometimes you hear the music and you say, that's what I was looking for. Interesting. Because I could say
a question from Kate here regarding this.
Yeah,
And
okay.
she's asking that, and the experiments, fusions of styles, music, was it always interesting for you? Or at the beginning, it was only pure jazz?
I don't know if it's for me or Sarah. I think maybe it's for me because I was talking about fusion, perhaps.
I love all music. I love all music. But I felt for how I move and how I want to move. I can move in different ways, but how I naturally move, let's put it that way, is the feeling of jazz. So I've done dance to waltzes and everything else. Beautiful. But I don't know,
But you're the first lady of swing.
And I'm saying,
sorry.
That's what he said, Jimmy, no? He said, if I'm the swing man, she's the first lady of swing. So,
well,
I don't know. But I think swing is the word. It's not so much jazz, because jazz can be quite boring sometimes. I think it's the swing. So we're saying jazz music because it's in that thing. But if jazz doesn't swing, don't mean a thing. I mean, they've made all these songs about it, don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So what? What else?
Well, she's asking from me as well. Can I answer?
Whoa.
No, I'm joking. Who's talking about for me? Well, just that. Well, for me, I grew up where I grew up, so jazz was extremely present in our house.
Yes,
so
all the time.
Yeah, it's part of me. But fusion, I mean, it's not even really fusion. I mean, same thing. I love all kinds of music. So it wasn't necessarily only pure jazz. I used to listen to, as a teenager, I was very much into reggae music and Bob Marley and a lot of folk music, Cat Stevens and Bob Dylan. I mean, like all kinds of music. So as far as tap, I mean, at some point, because it was the music of my generation in the 90s and 80s, 90s, like I was really into hip hop, old school hip hop. And that, so also at that time, like I wanted to dance to the music I was listening to. So at some point it was funk, and at some point it was, so it's not that, I'm doing fusion and I'm mixing tap, but it wasn't thought out that way. It's just always been like the music you love and want to listen to. And you were blending, because if you're coming, sorry, what?
I'm not.
No, that's it.
Estefanía.
Okay.
What music do you love?
I think I can say I love also any kind of music. But you can say always that you have a preference. So indie, lately it's a thing on me. Electronic music too.
Wow.
And
nice.
I can stay for weeks listening to jazz, and the other week just like electronic, and suddenly I'm going to rock. And with going Tina Turner or Phil Collins. It's like bouncing all around.
That's right. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's something like the latelys. There's specific, how you call that? Reggaeton. I have problems with it.
Mm.
Reggaeton, yeah.
Yeah, I have problems with it. Like I can hear like maybe like 30 seconds of a song and it's like, oh, I can. It's the only thing, and I feel
It's a
sad.
style. I don't think you.
But
There's
it's
a
like,
way. It's a style of music that you know.
yeah. So
Yeah. But from what we're all saying together, each one in their own way, is like you dance best to the music you love.
Well,
You
yeah.
know?
mhm.
So I mean, so if you have to do something, if I have to do something, why am I going to choose some complicated thing that will not? What for?
Well,
She's doing a
remember,
great thing with this too. Like she's creating stuff with specific music.
Terrific.
No,
Tell us.
specific.
Specific.
Terrific.
That sounded very specific. No, I mean,
you know, also. Oh, sorry.
Because it's interesting.
yeah, no. Well, I also grew up with a lot of interest in, and as a kid, I was really like old school soul, listen to jazz when nobody was around because nobody liked it other than me. But I got into hip hop and house a lot over 10 years ago. So Afro House, for instance, influenced me a lot. Now I'm married to a mambo dancer who also played conga. So Latin jazz has the last years influenced most of my work, I would say. So it goes in the Latin genre, old school mambo songs, and these things is the rhythms are so relatable to tap. So it's really
Isn't that wonderful? I mean, tap offers. Some people say, "Oh, well, I want to do that." What do you like?
Remember, a few years ago, there was I was approached to do a tap concert, a tap concerto that this guy had written. This He was actually coming from the rock and roll world. I didn't know this person, and it was a project for the city of Paris or something where they had asked him to write a concerto for this big symphonic orchestra called Orchestre Lamoureux, and he chose to. I don't know why. I don't remember why. He chose to write a tap concerto, and he didn't have anything to do with tap it to. And I remember. So anyway, he had approached me to dance it, and I remember it was like not at all the type. I'm just thinking of that because it's sometimes you end up not dancing to the music you like.
Yeah.
It was a bit strange experience because it was classical but a bit new, whatever, a bit strange. And but it was an interesting experience because then it's different. Then you have to think and construct and like it's another process which is not what we're talking about, the joy and the it's a different feeling basically. But it's interesting still.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much, no?
Well, yeah.
So much. Yeah. What are the questions you have?
Well,
More
I don't know.
questions. People
Not
is
much.
sleeping.
I see Phil Collins, but
Oh,
I think I can recognize these things in people, like the music that they pick it reflects their style of dancing. Like Estefanía has so clearly made a brand of herself, and
wow.
it doesn't surprise me. Like when Sareta says Phil Collins, it doesn't surprise me because of the way that I've seen her dance.
Yeah,
And I can see that in both of you too. Like the music that you pick also reflects the way you dance.
Yes.
sure.
Wow.
I don't know about folk dancing in Norway.
Yeah, Kate is asking that some folk dances with percussive elements. I mean, the most traditional folk dance in Norway is played with a fiddle,
Yeah.
not necessarily like percussive elements. So I'm not sure actually if it is any traditional dances because we have a very different history of when the percussive instruments came to Norway. So that I have to research more if I'm gonna figure out. But this we have a very famous folk dance called hulling, which is where you have this long broom with a hat on top, and the goal is to kick the hat off.
Oh.
But that's all with fiddle.
Oh.
But a lot of times you realize when you scratch a bit that most folk dances are super percussive in the footwork. You know,
Yes.
even if it's not tap and it's not necessarily heard, but it seems like
Wow. So how can we what else can we say about tap in all this?
well, there's a lot. I mean,
Yeah, because
kind
how
of betrayed from the Renaissance, but that's all good.
Yeah, we were like
yeah,
we're really far. But I think we mentioned some really big things that happen. I don't know if people has questions about maybe Chicago or the France scene. I don't know.
yeah, I don't
Because we said a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think I want to hear also from Leela, how was your stay in Chicago as
My stay in
student,
Chicago.
like as a
Well,
student or apprentice or like intern,
yeah,
all this.
honestly, my years in Chicago were not, they don't stand out as the biggest dancing years for me because it was right, we moved to Chicago right when I finished school here. And I basically went to go to college.
yeah,
And I didn't know what I wanted to study at the time. So I kind of bounced around a lot and changed majors, which I'm saying because it was actually interesting. And I think it, in a way, it also helped my life as a dancer later and a producer. So anyway, so it was, yeah, I spent basically 2 years in Chicago and then went to Colorado for a year and came back to Chicago. So it was already a little bit back and forth. It was mostly studious and like young 20s years. It was, I mean, we did, actually saying that, it's during the Chicago years that Mom, Sarah, and I, we first started seriously working on some choreography. When I think back, I mean, I always joined you, but it's in the Chicago years that, for example, the a cappella, all those numbers, that's when they kind of, we started working on them.
they were
Started
nice.
joining you more often, like
Yeah.
for real on stage, because before then it was always like, okay, whatever. And I mean, you always joke about me making a face and not wanting to go be on stage, even if I did. But so anyway, that was that's my late teenage years. It's the early teenage thing. So yeah, so when I think of Chicago, I also think of that. I have memories, specific memories of being in Columbia College in that dance studio and working on stuff with you. So there was that. And then and then just the whole thing with Chicago on Tap, that just kind of I mean, I was also going, I don't know, it just kind of happened. It had so happened that I graduated and that festival happened at the same time. So
Can something just brought back a memory for me. In the beginning of when I started tapping, Sylvia Doran, all that stuff. Right in the beginning, I didn't care for tap dancing, whatever. I was always doing swing and rock and roll, and tap dancing sounded kind of corny from movies. And I remember a friend of mine, an American in Paris, we were there too at the same time. She said, "Oh, there's this lady teaching tap dancing, American tap dancing. Shall we go and learn?" So I said, "Okay, I'll go with her. We go and learn." So we went to this. I'm just saying this because sometimes from strange experiences, you are forced to come out and you look for, I don't want to do this. And then you start looking for what you want to do, which I was not looking for anything at the time, but I went to this lady's stand, and it was called American tap dancing, taught by this French lady, and walked into this room, lots of students standing there. And I was quite shocked. I didn't know anything about tap. I mean, I knew tap was the great tap dancers, but I was quite shocked. This lady had an old piano player. I'm saying old because he seemed very old. And he played some old pieces on the piano. And I went with my friend to keep her company. And she had 4 dances. That's my first tap instruction. Okay, I went to this to learn. 4 dances. Dance 1, dance 2, dance 3, dance 4. Okay. Dance 1. Dance 2. Dance 3. And I was shocked at this. It was so ridiculously on everything. It was not, had nothing to do with music, nothing. So it was basically so it was going to a place like this, and I stayed a few times because my friend was going and I had to go with her. And everything was wrong about it. I mean, the first dance it was just a series of ding da hu de hu, and second one got something else. I don't know. And they were all dancing. Everybody there were 20 people dancing, and there was this old piano player playing, and it was tap dancing. They were all making tap sounds, and it shocked me so much. I didn't want to tap. I mean, this is not what I thought tap would be, and it was interesting because out of that distaste, like it was so silly. Because then at my own house, when I had a birthday party, your friends came and they said, "Oh, you're learning tap dancing. Yeah, show us a dance," and I couldn't, or I had to do what she said to do. And when I put on my own groovy music, what she told me to do, and it had nothing to do with the music. So it was like peeling off the skins to come to the real thing that I had to do. That's why I chose the musical element for me. It was the strongest because everybody can make up. This lady made up 4 dances of little things, and she was teaching for 25 years in Paris. I mean, so I thought that's not tap dancing. What is that? I mean, so it was from a negative approach that at least I'm glad I went further to find something that I liked. Otherwise, I would have never wanted to go near tap dancing, So that sometimes from that kind of thing, it's good to find, even if you see somebody and say, but if I do this, maybe, And for me, that negative thing took me, boom, in another direction, and I found it, what I wanted, what I thought was interesting. Wow, it was shocking. 4 dances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ding, don, People were going there for 20 years doing that. So, and that happens in America too. Even recently, a few years ago in Chicago, I visited some students. It's still a little, I hate to use a word, but it's still a little corny. It's stuck in something. I don't know what. It's stuck in the old teacher playing the piano, and it's stuck in that. So I had to go elsewhere because music is important to me, And then when I found these little things, you could go into jazz and wow, I can express myself, I can express myself within the music. Not bad,
Kurt is asking, when did you come to France?
Oh dear.
He
knows that already.
1969.
That's my 1969, Kurt.
No, I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
No, because Ezra was born in 1968 and he was born in New York.
I had to be there.
He was 2 years old when you moved to France, so that must have been 1970. Or 69 to Geneva?
Yeah.
69 to Geneva first,
Geneva.
and they moved to France.
Thanks, Leela.
You're welcome. I remember. No, I was born in 71, so.
That's true. Oh, my goodness.
There's more questions, no?
Yes.
Anna.
Ooh. is Anna?
Ana Gudinho.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Anna Gudino.
She's asking, how
Anna.
do you think your work in France influenced other countries in Europe, Sarah?
How do you think your work in France
Influenced other
Sorry.
countries in Europe.
That was a bit too fast there. Sorry.
other countries? How my work in France influenced other countries? Well, when I first met Daniel Luca and he came to study with me, he went back to Germany and did what I
Can I
did.
answer something for that?
Yes,
Can I
I
answer?
added and
Well, just
Leela
'cause I
here
have a
too.
thought.
So
Yes.
No, I think,
Leela.
I mean, you have your own thoughts, Sarah, but I would say
Yes,
that
I know.
perhaps the whole, I mean, the dancing with live musicians, the dancing in the clubs, on the stage setting with live improvisational jazz tap, I think that influenced quite a few people around Europe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that way. Yes, definitely. Yes. You mean my influence?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
I think your work, that's the part of your work that probably most influenced.
yes, I'm glad you said, because now I remember people would come and ask me a specific question. And I thought that was interesting. And I said, why did you do this with this or something? And I said, oh, it's nice. Somebody got it, And,
Yeah, or
yeah,
even, I mean, to be specific, like, I know that Thomas Marek in Germany, you did, you were important to him. I mean, you did shows with him
yeah.
at some point, even with Pia. I mean, so it's people in Germany. I mean, Daniel, yeah. I mean, I can't think at the moment, but
Yeah.
probably other people. Michelle, I mean, people in Belgium, in Holland.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Germany.
even so, I don't know, Estefania, did Sarah's work influence you? This, I don't know, in the newer generation how much her work influenced, because you're in Spain. I'm just thinking of people of other
Yeah, we did
countries,
stop
and
in
Yeah.
Spain a
there's
lot.
people I don't probably know that,
Thinking also in Sharon.
Sharon for sure,
Oh, yes, of
and also
course.
other people in Japan, Ayako
My
and
sweet
Saki,
teacher
and
on in Israel, yeah.
not
And
just
Germany
Europe.
too, Germany.
I think it's certain. Honestly, I think, Anna, just to answer your question, I think more than just Europe, I would say it's certain people around the world. Because
No,
even in America, you have people who are
oh, yeah,
professionals, who are top tap dancers, and who still come
they
to
come to.
Sarah to, learn something. So because the work is important or has influenced them.
I think the dancers who are experienced come because
And Kurt
they,
Albert too. Sorry, he
come.
said he,
No,
he said
no,
you influenced him.
of course, I love him. So, no, because I think that many dancers, even now, I see they'll come for a week or something. And it's not because they're like crazy over me or anything, but there's something specific they need to know, they want to know, and they can't even express what it is. And so spending time together, then all of us, I know because I feel what they are feeling, no? So I'll give exercises, we do things, and then suddenly the person says, that, yes, how did you come to that, So it's people looking for it, I don't know, that's what it is. So I found that interesting for me. It was like I could find solutions to specific not problems, specific questions for specific people. And that's what I love to do. I love to give a big class too. But that's another thing, as you all know. It's beautiful, you give your class. But when it gets specific and it's smaller, something else happens. And then each person, but I felt with my own experience a long time, even in a class of 40 people, I'll go up to one person who really needs me back there. I can feel it, I can see it. So the whole class, I set up something, I set up a rhythm, people are dancing, then I'll shoot somewhere there, and everybody's like, she's gone. No, I want to help somebody who's having a specific. I sensed it immediately. the way she was looking at me when I was explaining. So I said, I'll be there to myself. So I set up something. Come on, everybody, do this. And I was able. That's what happens when you teach more and more. And I think that's what happens. Let me finish the sentence. I think that's what, because you're all teachers and young teachers, I think that's what happens when you really believe in teaching, when you really teach and you're not just teaching and giving steps and when you're really teaching, it's fantastic.
Well, because also the way you teach, Sarah, you're not teaching for yourself. It's like that what you were saying about being on stage and performing. That's the sign of a great master, when you can go to that person in the back row that needs you, and not the one that's in the front doing everything perfectly.
Yeah.
That's also.
I also would like to add something to this, like
yes.
the things that we're doing now. For instance, just talking about these things, I feel like that has been missing maybe a bit after this boom of 15 years of Tap Festival, where it's kind of been just about the technique and nobody really sat down to have the conversations. So this bond that you're talking about, that people want from you, or just a week with, this conversation and friendship and guidance. I think maybe that's what's great with this pandemic, that people actually start talking again.
It's true.
From the silence comes the How lovely. Let's do it again.
Yes.
We have 2 more planned. Woohoo!
Yes, we have
say everything
2
tonight.
more.
We have 2 more.
Okay. You have 2 more planned?
Yeah.
When?
I
Tomorrow?
think there's
No.
There's
We have the
Kate.
dates.
It was a question or no?
Yeah, no, Kate wondered if you've been to Poland.
No, that was before. But that was one from Kate. You've been in Poland?
No, I don't think so.
I went with Stomp, but that's a different story.
Kurt asked the question?
Yes.
No. Somebody else.
But Kurt asked,
and that
tap course.
But I didn't go to Poland, did I, Peter?
I think it was about the influence while we were talking with Sana. That question. But before was like Kate. Sure, I'm just curious. I know it was like an answer for you. I think for the Norway thing. Sorry. I'm done.
We have because now we've already been talking for like 1.5 hours.
It's
amazing. We have 2 more talks. One in 2 weeks, and then Estefanía, do you have the dates in your head?
No, I was like same days, but like today's 20. Yeah, but next is 6, and I think the last one is 20.
But it's in 2 weeks. Saturday in 2 weeks, the same time. So if you have any,
you have to send me the.
I have the dates.
Oh, good.
The producer is the organizer. He has the dates.
And Kurt, you better come. Where's Kurt?
Okay, so March 20th. That's the last one.
That's the last one. March
and then March 6th.
Yes. So that's the next one. Same place, same time. It's a Saturday too.
Same computer.
Feel free
Get
to
your
text me
questions
and
ready.
Estefanía with questions in the meantime. If you suddenly dream about something that Sarah Leela said, just text us and we'll write it down for the next conversation.
Yes. I love questions. I love questions.
Yes.
Because it makes me have to look and think and resolve. It's beautiful. It's beautiful for a teacher.
Wonderful to have you guys here and listen
Thanks
to
for
what
doing
you have
it.
to share.
Actually, it's nice.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful.
Really amazing.
And remember, all of you teachers, it's great to be asked questions. Makes you really have to answer. And make sure you listen to the question so you can answer. Wow.
Yes.
This has been beautiful.
I think that's a good advice.
As they do in India.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Join your hands together to your heart.
No more tea. No.
That works too. No more tea.
No more tea.
Sorry. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened, and special thanks to Sarah and Leela for joining us. We're looking forward to the next conversation.
Yes.
I will wrap it up and say good night and thank you guys.
Thanks everybody.
It's been lovely.
Shuffle, shuffle.
Yeah.